What is up? Paige here. Today I want to talk a little bit about team composition, and more specifically, I want to talk a little bit about how affinities interact within a team comp. Because ultimately, there's only a couple different ways you can situate affinities within a team comp. Obviously, you can mix and match the different affinities with those, 5 different types of affinity compositions. But ultimately, there's only 5 different ways that you can situate affinities with a team comp. And I want to run down those 5 different types real quick, put a name to them, talk about each one a little bit and why you might use that one or not use that one. And you might ask yourself why this is important. And it's important because specifically for PvP modes in this game, you have Siege, you have Wraith Arena. Essentially, the way that those modes work is every time that you take a team and you face another team and beat them, the game takes a snapshot of the team that you used to get that win, and it puts it into a pool that it then uses to populate other players' boards. So every match that you win in Siege in Siege or Wraith Arena is a team that's being snapshotted, and potentially other players are going to ultimately face. So it's worth considering what types of team comps you put out there, how easy they are to beat for other teams, because even though defensive wins and losses aren't as big of a deal as they were in the early part of the game, it can still get you those extra couple trophies that to get you into the next bracket and more shards, or lose you the extra couple trophies that drops you out of a bracket and get you not the amount of shards that you were hoping to get. So it's worth being cognizant of as you're building teams to attack other players in Wraith Arena and Siege. Again, it's not gonna be useful for any PvE content like the upgrade events or red alerts or anything like that, but it is going to be useful in the PvP content. And it's also worth noting that you can swap in and out the different affinities, because these types are based more on the number count of affinities in each type of team comp. So with that being said, I'm going to start talking about the first comp that I have up here, which is what I call a balanced comp. A balanced comp is a 2-1-1 team comp, which means there are two characters in this case that are energy characters. There's one mystic and one physical. Now, this comp is balanced because it's the only comp in the game where you get where you get a character of each affinity within that team comp. So every other comp, you'll notice there's at least one affinity missing from every other comp on my list down here. And this is a very solid comp to send snapshots out of, because it's a comp that while it maybe doesn't have advantage over essentially any comp, it also doesn't have disadvantage to any comp. This is a comp that is very well-rounded. Obviously, by the name, it's balanced, because it's not an easy comp to necessarily face. It's always going to present at least some matchup problem to anybody that's trying to face this comp if they find it out in the wild. And it's worth noting that, like I said, you can swap in which affinity gets the double characters. So in this comp, we could swap out Power Girl and swap in Donna Troy. It's still a balanced comp. We could swap out Larfleeze and swap in Red Robin or something like that. Balanced comps are generally the way to go if at all possible, because they do present the least easy path for somebody to get an advantage over your team as they come across your snapshot in Wraith Arena. So moving right along, the next comp that I want to talk about is what I call a 2-2 comp. Essentially, you take 2 characters of any affinity, you take 2 characters of any other affinity, and you smash them together into a comp, and that's a 2-2 comp. Now, this is also a pretty balanced comp. It's not as balanced as a 2-1-1 because you are missing a physical character in this comp, but it's balanced in the respect that this comp has a built-in check and balance against somebody using physical characters against your mystic characters, right? So you have these 2 energy characters that essentially stop the opponent from putting in strong physicals to take out Black Adam, right? And you have these 2 mystic characters that stop the opponent from using energy characters, which have obviously no real use against this team. So really the only way that somebody could get an advantage over this team is by putting in 4 mystics or putting in at least 3 mystics. That's really the only team comp that has a pretty solid affinity advantage over this team. And even in that case, they're still hoping that their 4 or 3 mystics are strong enough to beat my 2 mystics that they have a neutral affinity advantage over. So, obviously, this is a comp that you can work around to get an advantage over, but it's not as easy as some of the other comps moving forward, because it does have that built-in check and balance of 2 characters that are essentially checking the other 2 characters' main weakness. Moving right along, and now You might have noticed that I said that there are 5 types of team comps, and logically you might think, okay, well, 2-1-1, 2-2, 3-1, and 4-0, what's the 5th one? Well, there are actually 2 different types of 3-1 team comps. The first one that I'm going to talk about is what I call a 3-1 strong comp. And why is this a strong comp? It's a strong comp because the most obvious thing that you would do against a team like this that has 3 energy characters is stack Mystics, right? There are 3 good energy characters here. And the easiest or most obvious way to take them out is to put in Black Adam, to put in Wonder Girl, to put in White Lantern Sinestro, to put in a bunch of Mystics that can take out these energy characters quickly. And this is a strong comp because the 4th character I'm using is a physical character that has high damage. And what that character does is it checks against the opponent stacking Mystics on their team. If they stack too many Mystics, Booster Gold is going to start taking them out, one-shotting them. Because of that natural check and balance of the 4th character protecting the 3, it stops the opponent from putting in so many Mystics, which potentially shifts the tide back to my energy characters being able to beat whatever team comp that they used. This is a solid team comp. So far, the first 3 are probably going to be the 3 that you want to use the most, if at all possible, to attack other people in Wraith Arena and Siege, because they present the most matchup problems as opposed to the last 2. They present the most matchup problems as far as somebody facing your snapshot in the future. So the 4th type that I want to talk about is what I call a 3-1 weak comp. And why is this weak? It's weak because there's nothing stopping the opponent from stacking Mystics against this comp. Now, you could switch these around using obviously the circle of rock, paper, scissors of Mystic defeats energy, energy defeats physical, physical defeats Mystic, and put 3 Mystics and put 1 physical. You could put 3 physical and 1 energy. Ultimately, the reason why this is a weak comp is because there is no check and balance against the opponent stacking the characters of the affinity that's strong to the 3 characters here. And in fact, if somebody were to stack 4 Mystics against this team, they would have advantage over 3 of my characters and be neutral to the 4th one. So I'd be relying on Black Adam, which is possible, Black Adam going crazy and beating all 4 Mystics by himself. It's possible, but it's obviously not the most ideal comp that you could put out there because it is so counterable. The last comp that I want to talk about is probably the most obvious. It's a 4-0 comp, and this is a comp that you want to stay away from if at all possible when you're playing PvP, because this is a comp that, just like when you see 4 energy characters out in the wild, your eyes probably light up big time because you could stack Mystic against that comp. That's exactly what everybody else does when they see your 4 Mystics. So essentially the whole point of this video was to get people to consider the types of comps that they're putting out there as far as affinity is concerned, and the best way to kind of measure how good you are at considering the composition of affinities and the potential for defensive wins and losses is to ask yourself, how would you deal with a team like this? If you would stack 4 Mystics on your team, you're doing exactly what this guy did that made this team made your eyes bug out of your head. You're giving somebody a slow pitch softball, you're putting the ball on a tee and letting them hit a home run on you. You know, they don't even have to, at the end of the day, having 4 energy characters in a team, you don't have to take 4 Mystics into that match. There are plenty of other ways. You could use a 2-2 comp. You could use a 3-1 weak comp against that because the 4th character won't have an affinity disadvantage to the 4 Mystics. Or you could even use a balanced comp, because if you put 2 strong enough Mystics in that team comp, the 1 physical that has disadvantage to this team hopefully will be hidden quick enough. The match will be over quick enough that he'll stay hidden and won't be attacked. So at the end of the day, when you see a comp like this, seriously consider the snapshots that you're putting out into the open, that you're allowing people to tee up and hit a home run on, or the snapshots that you're putting out there that are going to make somebody really think, oh, how am I going to take this out? How am I going to get some sort of advantage over it? Because in this game, ultimately, there's so many matches that are won and lost by just a little tiny bit of advantage that one team has over the other, or a little tiny bit of planning that one player did over another player. So it's definitely worth considering, or at least being cognizant of moving forward. So that being said, I want to thank everybody who did listen to this for listening. If you guys have any ideas for any future videos, it is possible I might do a companion video to this one in the future where I go down a PvP board and look at the different types of team comps that they used and how I would attack those team comps and maybe even have a little bit of gameplay. We'll see how the reception is on this. So if you like this video, definitely let me know. If you have a great idea for a video I could do in the future, absolutely reach out to me and let me know. But I want to thank everybody for listening and for watching this video. Thank you so much. Peace.